You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts, but there's only one where the horns are always down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Horns Down Podcast. Tonight, we're talking about Jaren Kanak. Obviously, you saw him on the video. We're going to talk about him, the rest of the linebacker room. We're just trying to figure out, can he make that jump? Look, we are all amateurs at the end of the day. Well, some of us we won't, some of the people who are going to be on the show. But keep in mind that, hey, look, you know, these are just our opinions about things that are going to be said. So we just want to make sure that that's out there. But now we got that disclaimer out there. We're going to get to the business on that topic. Also going to talk about Nickens Decommitment, and then talk about some other OU related news as well. But no further ado, got my guy Barry with me tonight. Got another guest that's coming up too. Obviously, got to put the horns down. Barry, tell everybody what's up. Tell everybody where they can find you and all your wonderful content.
Yeah, man. Me and Damian Mackey, part of the Barry and Mac show. We've been going strong for, 2 years, I want to say. Been going strong. Got some big stuff coming that we're working on. Really excited for that. But we're recording a podcast tonight that will be up. He's a friend of mine. We actually just did dinner the other day at Mahogany Steakhouse out here in Tulsa. Man, it was phenomenal. That was about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. But go to the Twitter or the Instagram. It's at BWise Fitness, at letter B, WISE Fitness. You can follow the Barry and Mac show at the Barry and Mac SHW on Twitter because it was too many characters. But on Instagram, it's just at the Barry and Mac show. We're posting shorts over there. And officially, for those watching, following, we are on YouTube, completely full video, uncut podcast. I'm usually sitting right here. Damian's sitting wherever he's traveling, and we are bringing you guys as real, authentic of content as we possibly can. We've been doing it for a while now, and we love it. It's a we called it a passion project when we started. Still is a passion project. We make a little bit of money from it, but it's still a blast. We love it.
Hey, look, all those links are in are down below. Okay, so go ahead, check out those links. Follow us on X, Twitter, whatever you call it now. So, hey, no further ado, let's get straight to it. Jaren Kanak, okay, is a phenom in some people's eyes, a kind of a question mark in other people's eyes. You know, it is the conversation. It's like a hate or love type of flow of conversation about this kid. Can he? Will he make that jump? And when I say jump, I mean the Danny Stutzman jump. You know, will he take that jump? I think as far as what we're hearing out of camp, you know, at least to start today, it looks like it's Kip and Danny, right, as your ones. What does Kanak have to do? I mean, just kind of let's talk about that. And as we start this, let's just talk about him getting on campus, kind of his maturation thus far, and then just kind of, you know, thinking ahead, right?
Yeah, I mean, so to understand Kanak and how he fits in to what OU has done the past couple years, going into the third year of Coach Venables, I think it's important to preface this conversation with how he got to Oklahoma, because I think that has helped or assisted in, and maybe rightly or wrongly, right? You might have folks argue both sides. I think that has contributed in how this situation has played out, right? Everybody knows that he was committed to Clemson. He was committed to BV and then changed his commitment. People kind of know the story at this point. He ended up having to walk on for a time, but became a scholarship player. He wanted to follow Venables to Oklahoma. Venables tried to curtail that, right? He tried to say, no, you committed to Clemson. That's where you need to go. As Sooner fans know, he ends up a Sooner and was a big deal. Probably the best athlete at linebacker OU had brought in a number of years, right? Just pure He played both sides of the ball in high school. And we'll get to that a little bit. Phenomenal athlete overall. He's a guy who's going to, when he goes to the combine or does his pro day, he's going to put up some stupid numbers, right? He's going to be a guy who is all-world athlete in terms of how he moves. That brings us to the linebacking position. And I think Stutzman, it is kind of ironic that his best comparison in terms of the jump he needs to make and the type of player he really is Stutzman. I think they're very close in terms of where they were as younger or now a slightly less younger player versus where they need to go. And understanding Stutzman is kind of the same way, right? He's told the story himself about how I'll keep it super short, but how his investment in the game of football, particularly at Oklahoma, when Riley was there, was not what it needed to be a Venables defense, right? Venables challenged him and said, hey, you need to get into your playbook. You need to get into understanding what we're trying to do, understanding the nuances of the game to be a linebacker like OU had in their heyday, right? Your Calmuses, your Marshalls, your Loftons, your Travis Lewises, right? Your guys that were really solid All-American or fringe All-American players. To be that guy, here's what you need to do. Kanak, as everybody knows, when he got on campus that freshman year, he definitely popped off the screen in those first few games as a Sooner, right? Everybody remembers, I want to say it was the opener, or if not, it was for sure the Nebraska game, right? When they were playing in Lincoln. He goes out there, he makes some pretty incredible plays, but you could see the rawness. And where we are now is watching him last year, still the same athlete, still the same overall ability, but that rawness, that lack of understanding of the game of football still seems to be present. There are issues when you talk about hearing out of camp that it's basically Kip and Danny. We'll kind of get to that and unpack that a little bit, but right now I think it's important to understand that Kanak is still an unfinished project, and BV historically has really worked with guys and like to see guys, stay in that position and be leaders in that position for years, right? You see Stutzman coming back when, who expected that with all the players that have left early as Sooners? I don't think anybody really saw that coming. So for him to return shows what he's building there. But Kanak is a phenomenal athlete. He is, I would say, probably one of OU's best athletes going forward. I think he's right there with Dasan McCullough in terms of a guy who just downhill, full speed sprint to go make the tackle can get to you. Now, he might not be proficient or technical in how he gets that done, but phenomenal athlete, still has a lot of work to do when it comes to the football side. And we'll get into the details because I actually have some things I've done videos on in the past on him, and we can unpack that.
Well, I'll jump in and say this right here. One of the things I think people have to understand, it took a while for Isaiah Simmons to get on the field. And it took a while for Isaiah Simmons to really be molded into the player that he was at Clemson, right? Under BV's system, playing that cheetah position, all of those different intangibles. We all know BV's defense is not easy, okay? The thing that's probably the next difficult thing on the team, most difficult thing on the team, is probably trying to learn how to play offensive line for Beatenbow, right? So with that being said, here's the thing: is that I think people want to see him make that jump, but I think the belief is that, hey, I think there's some kids on the roster that have passed him, right? As far as he may have more intangibles than they do, but these guys have played the position longer. When I talk to my uncle about Kanak, we talk about him quite often. He mentioned to me, he said, to be honest with you, Kanak is somebody who's perfect for Grinch's system with the speed, just trying 100%. To get downhill, not really having too many assignments or all of that stuff. He said he's somebody that is perfect for that Raleigh regime, right?
Yeah. Here's your gap, run full speed, and there's no decision making involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas BV, there is decision making involved. And so it just felt like after that Cincinnati game, which I still go back to quite often, and I say the Cincinnati game is Kanik's best game. It was his best game as a Sooner. He made some plays. One in particular that I can think of right now is the one on Emory Jones. Emory Jones was he had 2 lanes, and he took the one, 2 lanes. He had 2 holes, and he could go out of either one. The one inside was closer to Kanik. The other one was the outside, and that was the obvious one that he took, and he had nothing but green grass. Kanik cuts through 2 defenders, comes over there, tackles that guy. You see the closeout speed. You see the awareness. You see the intangibles of being able to move laterally, go side to side, being able to do all those different things that a linebacker is supposed to do. And you see those and maybe 2 or 3 plays that just pop out on the screen like, hey, this kid has all the tools to be one of the best linebackers at OU, right?
Yeah.
But then as the season goes on, it just seems like he's thinking more than he's reacting. It just seems like he's not getting it. And then you see Kip Lewis is just a ball hawk. He's always around the ball, and he's always making a play on the ball. Probably the worst game that Kobe McKenzie had is probably OSU, just trying to keep up with that tempo and different things like that. I've seen Kip has struggled in coverage, go to the Arizona game, but hell, what linebacker hasn't struggled in coverage?
All of them have,
we run those cover 3, because that's something that I think that if we could fix, that would take this defense to the next level whenever you're able to actually say, we have all our zones covered, we have all our clouds situated, let's let this 3-man go to work, and we got our speed guys on the field. We got PJ, we got R. Mason Thomas or whoever. We got our speed guys on the field. Let them go ahead and work, But on those edges, excuse me. But I mean, I don't know. I just feel like Kanik, everybody thought he would be a cheetah, and then everybody's like, no, I don't think that he's a cheetah, especially at this time and place right now. I don't think that he's a cheetah, and I think there's some other guys that are better suited for that role, Omi Asigo especially. But when you look at the roster, you just got to think. I mean, Lewis Carter, obviously Kip. I feel like Kobe is right. I feel like Kobe is going to be right there behind Stutzman. I feel like he's Stutzman basically at 1A. He's going to be the guy that if Stutzman gets hurt, and he's the guy in training for that role. He's the understudy. He's the true understudy in my opinion.
But you're right. I think that's a 1A, 1B going into this year, right? He's not as good as Stutzman. I don't think anybody's claiming that. But in terms of drop off, I mean, Kobe, with the jump he made, and he's a good example too. When he got to OU, we had kind of heard through the grapevine with some of our sources through the podcast that Kobe couldn't really move his feet when he got to Norman. He had a really bad issue with that. He was not a guy who was ready to play D1 football. He was not physically where he needed to be in that defense athletically, right? Whereas Kanik was kind of the other side. Mm-hmm. I think it's twofold. I think one of the things that you see between looking at Kip Lewis and looking at Kanik is that Kanik did not play linebacker enough in high school. Mm-hmm. He did not have enough time playing that position. Kip, that's really all he did. And you see it in his play. He's very fluid. He understands really basic things that me and DMAC have unpacked on the podcast, how to scrape, how to slide, how to shuffle his feet versus running full speed. There was a few plays that I highlighted during the season. You talk about Cincy being his best game. One of his worst games was UCF. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the game where he gets pulled for Kip Lewis. I'm pretty sure.
I think it is.
It was not good. Mm-hmm. And it was not good in terms of just basics of the game, right? The first run that that was really the explosive ground play that UCF had was a mistake by Kip.
That sprint run. Yeah, that little sprint run, right? Yeah.
And they did it multiple times, right? In the game, and they finally had to swap him out. But all that happened was Kip, to keep it simple, DMAC goes into a little more of the terminology on the pod, but basically he got his shoulders turned, and you see Danny on the opposite side playing it correctly, how it should be played. They're both essentially doing the same thing, covering, just mirroring each other's assignments, right? There might be a few other things on that other side that Stutzman has to worry about, but basically in that call, they're supposed to be squared up to that line of scrimmage and able to force the player inside for others to help clean up, or in some cases try to bounce it outside. Kip gets his Kanak gets his shoulders turned, and there is nowhere to go. In coverage, I think until he learns the game like Stutzman has learned the game, and there's certain things that Stutzman did this past year that were noticeable in coverage. Kanak and most of the other linebackers, save maybe Omasigo, I'm curious to see Carter in this. None of them have the kind of that open field agility, right? Stutzman has gotten better to really be elite in coverage yet from just a physical standpoint. The reason Stutzman made that jump was he got a lot more physical. In coverage, mind you, he learned how to use his hands more effectively, be sneakier when it comes to bumping guys off their routes.
Yeah.
Understanding his position on the field and how he can dictate pass plays from that backer position. Kanak just doesn't have that yet. But to sum it up, in my opinion, the technical stuff has to get better. Knowing when to slow down versus when to go full speed, because that ate him up a lot. But then knowing how to just keep your leverage and keep position, right? Not being fooled by the eye candy and allowing the game to be easier by letting your teammates also help you be more effective. And I think that's the next step, and that's what Stutzman was able to do.
Yeah, I think Stutzman was able to. Yeah, I think the game slowed down for him mentally. It looked like he had figured things out. Whereas, and I always go back to this. Anybody that listens to this podcast, they know I point several games out, and this is one of them. 2022 season, Iowa State. Stutzman kept getting beat on that damn slant. They just kept running that little cross route. Whatever you want to call it, little drag. They kept running a drag or a slant, or they would do some little short, little skinny post or whatnot right there behind him, and they knew that he was going to keep moving out of the way until he didn't, right? And so this year you didn't see that. This past season you didn't see that happen. You didn't see that happen often, and that's one of the things. And honestly, that's what happened in the Arizona game at Kip. That's what got Kip kind of crossed up a whole bunch was not knowing how to really move and maneuver himself into position to be able to, because I was like, dude, that's a pick, like stay there, because you could tell that he was like, there was one play that Fafita threw, they ran it, what we're talking about, they ran it, passed it, he ran out of the way. After as soon as the play is over with, you can see Kip is over there hitting his helmet like, damn, all I had to do was just move here. That's a pick. That's all.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that's something that all the linebackers, not just Kanak, not just Kip, that's something that all the linebackers have to get better at, because that middle is always wide the freak open. Our cover three it's mind-boggling sometimes. Just like, dude, like it's what are we doing? But I mean, I feel like Kanak has all the tools to make that jump. I just don't know if going to the SEC, if you have time right now, basically, and especially with this year, with wanting to kind of set that tone, right? I think, and the reason why I brought up Isaiah Simmons, because a lot of people don't realize, I didn't realize this at the time a few years ago, until the fact was brought up that, I mean, he was a junior, damn near senior, really getting on the field and getting his feet under him and really establishing
Mhm.
himself as one of the premier linebackers in the nation that year, right? And so, or those years that he was in college. So, I mean, that's the thing, is that you don't give up hope on a guy like Kanak. You just say, hey, I stay hopeful and optimistic that he can make that jump. But we keep saying that, and it feels like we're talking in broad terms. You talked about some technical things that he should clean up, but mentally, and then I guess just physically, we'll go into some other things. What are some other things you think that he has to do to really make that jump this summer and fall?
Well, the part of it, and this goes to the other linebackers, is and this is where Stutzman improved, and why the playbook, right, that fans talk about, and that the BV was talking about with Stutzman, is, and Kip's a good example. Ideally, your veteran linebacker, right, and Kanak at this point this year, he's going to be a junior. You're a veteran linebacker compared to all the other guys. You're a leader in that room. You need to be able to line up against most teams. And I know they haven't played a lot of these teams. It's going to be new. But line up, and based on formation, based on personnel, based on down and distance, based on situational stuff, like where you are on the field, what hash you're on. The best linebackers, the reason they succeed, particularly in coverage, is they understand those things. So they know, well, I'm probably not going to get this, but I might get this. There's a strong chance they like getting to this on third and medium. I bet this is what we're going to see. And now a guy who was really good at that was Rocky Kalmus. I know that's a flash to the past, but Rocky, if people remember, he was a good athlete, but I wouldn't say he's as good on his feet as Kanak. Right? Rocky was a little bit of a bruiser at times. Really good athlete, also played running back in high school, went to my high school alma mater, Jinx. But he was a stud in that regard. But Kanak, from his first step, is more explosive than Rocky. He doesn't have the big size that Rocky had. Rocky was a little bit bigger built guy, if I remember. But he knew the game, and he thought the game. Torrance Marshall, very similar deal, right? They appreciated the nuances of formations and down and distance. They did it to Florida State the whole national championship. Even a guy like Travis Lewis, he made jumps year after year. You go to some of the better backers later on, Lofton, your Clint Ingrams. These guys really understood when you line up, what do I expect? Because none of those linebackers, save for, some of your freak athletes like your Isaiah Simmons, right, are going to be able to line up and man some of these receivers they're going to see in the SEC. You're not going to have faster feet than them. So how do you win? You do what Stutzman did this past year, where you learn how to leverage the refs not seeing certain things, getting into your back pedal a little quicker, knowing where you are on the field and where that pass is likely coming. Stutzman did it in the TU game where he got that interception. That was a knowing where that ball is likely heading and getting to that spot, beating the man there, and then beating the receiver to the position, and then winning at the ball. So for Kanak, in my opinion, it's, and this is probably getting a little too like overtly psychological. But you could also see later in the year he was in his head, which was a big. You could tell, right? Yeah. So, well, what's your take on that?
I mean, my take on it was that he was looking over his shoulder. I mean, Kip was coming out there and he was making plays. Thank God that Kanak stayed a great teammate, but Kip came out there. I mean, basically took over his spot, and a lot of people were calling for that. Myself included at times during the season, a lot of people were calling for his job, because it just felt like Kanak he needs more mental reps right now, and he needs more work, right? An interesting point about it is that, again, I talked to my uncle about it. My uncle brought up the point, and I think it's a good point to make on the show. He says, hey, if there's anybody to blame for what Kanak's doing right now, it's BV. Why? Because you should have put him right into the middle of things, should have cast him out there in the fire and told him, go figure it out. He said he should have been playing year one, getting more reps, That way, the jump that you saw for Stutzman, obviously that's expected.
Yeah.
But Kanak could have made another jump himself. But because of that, this is really his first year playing linebacker.
That's a great point.
And it's hard to sit here and try to, be down on the kid because you're like, hey, raw athlete that has all the intangibles. But the fact of the matter is just he's he doesn't have the reps. So he was like, same thing.
That's a great point, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the reps. You have a guy like Lewis who does have the reps at a different level. And one of the things that made the biggest difference when he came in and why you saw run defense improve, why you saw at times, well, let's just talk strictly about the run. Kanak, for being as physical as he is, right, as good of an athlete and as strong and as explosive as he is, he would duck under a lot of times, right? When it came to battling the guards, when it came to getting out there on a blocker. And we saw this a little bit too in the previous year from number 2 who played in the defense in that BV's first year, who played middle backer, where you leave your teammates hung out to dry if you don't take on that block, right? Mm-hmm. Multiple times in the BYU game, you saw Kip Lewis, who was an undersized backer, right? There's a couple of them. I remember the plays very vividly where he just said, it's going to hurt. I'm going to be in trouble, but because of me doing this is my assignment. I'm to eat up this guard so my teammate here can get in there and make the tackle, make the play. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to do it. And then again, coming down to position and understanding the technique, even though Kip is undersized, he knew how to play low. He knew how to have good leverage. He knew how to go low when he needs to in different situations. Mm-hmm. He knew how to properly shake a guy and understanding timing, right? When that guard and reading the guard, reading the tackle, reading the center, knowing how to get into position, right? Being able to make that first read and then get to where you need to be, right? Yeah. And Kanak, too often than not, the play was at the D1 level. And just if anybody has ever seen a Division I athlete up close, right? The speed that they are moving is insane. Some of these guys, how fast and how explosive they are. By the time you react, the play is done. You're toast, right? You have that much time to see, react, and do, right? And that is the linebacker position. And because you're so close to the line of scrimmage, the physics of the game are not in your favor, right? You have to react quicker than the guys in the secondary. And you're also playing in space. You're not playing in close quarters like at the line of scrimmage, where even though you're reacting fast, you also got a little bit of leeway, right? At the linebacker position, you are in space and it is fast, which means it is probably one of the harder positions in terms of reading, assessing, and doing that you'll have on the field. Mm-hmm. So Kip Lewis, kind of to your point, just having more reps at linebacker, right? And that goes to a guy like Lewis Carter, Omasigo. Lewis Carter was in high school was a bulldog. And to me, he's the guy this season, particularly in the SEC. He's the guy to watch out for, man. He is explosive. He is strong. Mm-hmm. And if Kanak isn't doing the little things to solidify that spot, I think they're going to be he's going to be in a little bit of trouble, man, in terms of the depth chart, because guys are coming.
I think a lot of people do. Sooner Cowboys, he says, Omasigo and Carter should have played last year too. He says he thinks those two have a higher upside than Stutzman and Kanak. And I don't disagree. I think the upside, they have more upside right now. Mm-hmm. You know where your feet are right now, right? Let's see what else are we saying over here. So Student Cowboy said he's anxious to see how the season plays out. Like I said, I today at where I'm at presently, 10 wins. I say 10 wins at least. We'll get to all of that at some point. But No, I mean, I guess to kind of, close this thing out as far as Kanak goes, we got some other topics to talk about, but as far as Kanak goes, I think the thing is that you just, you're optimistic because of the simple fact of something that me and Ty Hayes, shout out to Around the Table Sports, my guy, but something we talk about all the time. Venables, Todd Bates, and company love freak athletes. They love athletes. Mm-hmm. They love getting those athletes that they can say, hey, we can't teach you what you have, but we can teach you how to play the game. And we can teach you how to go make some money too. Right? So What is Kanak? Kanak is one of those freak athletes that you see do all the things that if you go back to old OU tapes, if you go back to Clemson tapes, you'll see guys doing freakishly athletic things from that linebacker, defensive end, cheetah, even some D tackle. You'll see highlights of that stuff, and that's the type of guy you have in Kanak. And it may not be until next year whenever you get to actually see all of that come to fruition. But he's going to play this year, and I think right now we can say it's Danny and Kip, but Kip's looking over his shoulder too, right? So I think that we have to, we have to keep that in mind. As far as Misigo, Lewis Carter, I think those guys are going to be hungry to get on the field, and it's going to be hard to keep them off.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Omasigo athletically might be he's one of the best they've brought in, man. Carter again he's a bulldog. He's going to be a powerhouse, man. He's a guy who I could see not just playing well at linebacker, man, but put him on special teams and also let him go there. I don't feel like he played a lot of specials this year, even early in the season. I could be wrong though on that.
I feel like he did. You saw him out there.
Did he?
You saw him.
Okay.
You saw them out.
I know. I did see Omasigo.
Yeah.
Omasigo, I definitely saw.
Carter was out there.
He stood out. Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But Omasigo, man, he's got the length. He's got the speed. And you can tell also that program, they've really bought in now and understand what Jerry Schmidt is trying to do with them.
Yeah.
On the nutritional side, on the physical acumen side, they are all really invested, and you see that in their bodies and in their growth, right, at all positions, but linebacker particularly.
The pro day spoke volumes to me because it was better than the first year, and it was drastically better. It wasn't better because you had better talent out there. It was just better because you see the buy-in is really happening and taking effect. So if D-Mac comes on here, we may circle back to that, but other than that, let's go ahead and move on. Look, we had a decommitment, guys. Woke up this morning. I think everybody woke up this morning. They saw it late last night or heard some news about it late last night. But Jaden Nickens from Douglas High School, not Millwood anymore. 4-star wide receiver has decommitted from Oklahoma. I guess the belief or the on the surface level belief is that he's wanting to be a dual sport athlete and play basketball and football. I'm not really sure what offers he has basketball wise. He is a Division I basketball player. I've watched
100%.
He's a Division 100% basketball player. Is he high level, mid level? I'm not really sure where he kind of comes in to the fold, but I definitely think he's a Division I player. Now I have my reservations about Porter Moser. I think Porter Moser is a really good coach, but at the same time, who wants to do a dribble handoff? That's just me. We'll talk about that later at another time. But at the same time, I just asked you, Barry, what are your thoughts about this decommitment?
I think it's not a big deal. And I'll say a couple things. One, we know that this staff, can and will be aggressive, right? When it comes to recruiting. You've got one of the best recruiters at the receiver position in the game working this young man. So I think that also means a whole lot. But to say that he's not a big loss, you get a guy with that kind of length. that kind of route running ability. You know, a guy who can jump out of the gym, who's fast, who's explosive, but also long. I want to say Rivals had him, or 24/7 had him, you know, top 100, some even a little bit higher, but one of the best receivers for that class in the country.
Yeah.
And OU, if you could say anything about this class, that it's not necessarily big on length in terms of the receiver position. You got some speed guys, some slot kind of bodies, not necessarily a lengthy kind of go get the ball Jaden Nickens type. And he's a guy who, you know, with his ability can really do it all. You know, in terms of how basketball fits in, I've seen this thrown around. He's a good basketball player. I don't think he's not a lottery pick guy.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who could probably go play for one of these, you know, top 10 to top 25 programs and have a good role, potentially be like a second or third scorer, play good defense. Like I don't know if he's a star, right? And I think you kind of brought up a good point. OU's basketball could very well, you know, be playing into this, right? And the perception of the program, the perception of where it's headed or not headed. But in terms of is it a loss? Is it a big deal? I don't count this staff out with anybody. And I think if somebody is going to figure it out, it's going to be Venables. But at the end of the day, OU has done one thing especially well since Venables has gotten there, and that's make great evaluations, right? We've seen it with the kind of athletes they've brought in now in every class, and just the initial product, the moment those players take their first snaps, just what do you see? And you see a bunch of players who can go get it done, right? Offense, defense. You got guys now, we're hearing good things about a Logan Howland, right? Who was, people said, why are you getting that guy, right? He's a project for sure. And now you hear about him, and he was a guy I was extremely high on. And I said, man, that's a phenomenal evaluation if Howland buys in and does the right stuff. And now I think Gabe and Teddy talked about him on their pod, if I remember right. He's turning into a stud. So at the end of the day, man, I trust the staff. I think they're going to do what they need to do to still have a top 10 fringe top 5 class. But he's still a guy, man. You don't want to lose products that are close to home. So I think it's a big deal, but I don't think it's the biggest problem, if that makes sense.
So this is what I'll say. Okay. So obviously, if we're just, can we speculate a little bit? Can we just speculate?
Let's speculate. Yeah, let's speculate.
So does he stay at Douglas and play football next year? Does he stay there? Or does he go to Carl Albert? Right? So, you know, that's kind of what the Tweety birds out there, if you want to say that. I don't want to say the ex guys, I say the Tweety birds. But anyways, no, I mean that's kind of like when this happened, you know, you hear kind of the little chirps that, hey, well, maybe he's trying to make his way to Carl Albert, which honestly would bring him back into the fold because all their top guys are what? Commits, right? So, I mean, the thing is that he's going to be heavily influenced. I think for the most part, a lot of people will. I think most people are going to want him to stay with OU and stay home. I think that's what's best. I see him.
Oh, he's going to hear it nonstop. Yeah.
If he does end up going somewhere, I think that he could have kind of like a Keon Coleman type path to where, you know, at some point he just realizes like, hey, you know, I'm damn good at basketball, but I'm NFL elite caliber talent in football, and this is what I'm going to do. So he'd be a guy that I could see possibly maybe transfer, bounce around, but I think he's going to be a star. I think he has star potential. And I think that he has the swagger, he has the talent, he has the skills, he has everything it takes to be a high level, elite prospect at the wide receiver position. I just think it's all about getting him on campus. But I think that, I definitely think he's going to be there. Hold on one second. Oh, yeah. Unc is on the show. Unc said it's time to move on from him. Why would we move on? Barry, tell me, why would we move on?
I mean, man, I don't think you want to. I think he's the kind of player who you need a receiver, a local product, a guy who's explosive. And, as you were talking, I'm like, I wonder who is in his ear in terms of the basketball side, because football side, Emmett Jones he's shown that he can develop guys. We've seen that even just this past year, the maturation and progression at the receiver position. I'm not saying that, and I guess I'm kind of playing both sides of the fence on this, because I also say that OU's just good with evaluations. Yeah. But man, if you still have a chance with a player like this, who for him, I would say there's maybe 10 of them in the country, if that, in terms of height, length, speed, ability to play the ball, that he's got that rare blend. Why would he not go to an Oklahoma where they're probably not going to be bringing in a Trey Young anytime soon, where maybe he could flourish at that spot, and have a potential to maybe see his career blossom at OU, right? He's going to get exposure basketball wise. So I'm really curious as to who's in his ear telling him, like, is he thinking about going to, trying to think off the top, like a
State,
like a Texas. Yeah. But I mean, and they just got rid of Boynton, right?
Yeah, they did.
So I don't know what happens there, but in my opinion, like Oklahoma from a football side, and his career long-term is in football. Kyler Murray was an amazing baseball player, but I think he knew where his bread was going to end up being buttered. And a lot of guys have figured that out, especially guys in this day and age of basketball, where it's so hyper-specialized and you got to be able to shoot, especially if you want to make money, right? And there's so many hours involved and so many reps involved in being elite enough to have more than a cup of coffee in the NBA, where NFL, man, if you're a great athlete at receiver and you've got the height and the length, a team is going to give you a shot if you played good ball at Oklahoma.
And it's going
basketball is a harder game.
It's going to be hard to turn Emmett Jones. I think and obviously, Emmett Jones is going to continue to recruit the kids. So I think it's going to be hard to turn that down. So what are your thoughts about this comment right here? Onk says, I'm hearing OU will not let him do both.
It's possible, man. Just as I kind of spoke about with basketball, you've got to get reps to be elite, but that also goes on the football side too. And there's a possibility as well. Receiver is one of those positions where guys have a little bit more leeway, but the physical aspects of your body are different from football to basketball. And basketball it's not like baseball, right? Where it is really it is predominantly played in the spring, right? You do have work leading up to that, but it's a spring game. Basketball, there's a little bit closer crossover in terms of end of fall, winter, into, of course, getting into March. Like there's so much involved in having your body ready to play a football season. Especially, I would say this: if he was a receiver who was like OU viewed him as like a third or a fourth guy, a guy who maybe isn't a top tier dude, there might be a chance they let him play. Right? There's a reason why on the baseball side they have no problem. They know that it's not going to have near the physical wear and tear, right? You're just not moving the same amount. in basketball, you're moving your feet more. There's a greater chance for injury. When you just boil it down to how many steps you take in practice, this is all stuff that they're tracking, right? How many miles you're putting on your body, that's a big deal.
Well, one point that I think something that stood out to me from what you said is like, hey, kind of it dips into the seasons dip into each other. You got to think now with this extended playoff that we're going to have, you're looking at, especially if they extended to 14 teams like you're talking about, you may not play the championship game until January 18th. Meaning that even when you do go play basketball, if you're not already playing basketball, you're going to get there right in the thick of things in SEC play, right? Conference play. It's not like you got tune-up games to go out there and get your legs under you. You're going right into conference play, right? So by that time, roles have already been established, especially around January. As one of my uncles would always say, you circle the wagon. This is who we have. These are our guys now, right? Our freshmen are sophomores. Our sophomores are juniors. Our juniors are seniors. Our seniors are ready to get on the ship to sell off, right? So the whole thing is that, I mean, it just doesn't really mesh well, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're dead on. It's just not.
Well,
especially if you're a top guy, like being a top dude, and people who view Nickens coming to their program view him as a 1 or a 2, right? Mm-hmm. He's a guy who's going to be a primary ball catcher.
Yeah,
you cannot run the risk of that guy not being available. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's simple.
Are there? Let me just ask you this, and you don't have to go into great detail, but just could you name some targets that you think OU will probably chase after now?
Oh, man, I'd have to go in and look.
Because it seems like they've kind of – let me say that again. It seems like they kind of circled their wagon with that as well. So,
yeah, I mean, at receiver, it's so – I feel like he was an easy target because he was local. I think OU obviously was looking for slot guys. I don't know who they would go, at least in this class, right? Some of the guys like your Grayson Harris, the other Elijah, I forget. There's another young man in the class at receiver who's I want to think he's right in the 6'1" range. In terms of elite go-to guys, man, I just don't know. They got a lot of that taken care of. Length at the receiver position, speed. The bulk of that was in this previous class, right? With your Kierneys, your Reagans, going out and getting your top tier receivers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if maybe they venture in and take another route if they don't find another guy who sort of fits that Nickens bill as an elite pass catcher who's got the body to play on Sunday, right? If that maybe they take a different road in terms of guys they're looking at. But I can't think of anyone, definitely not locally, but even nationally, who would be on their radar who's that level of receiver, right? Mm-hmm. That I know they've put out quite a few offers, but I think he was close to home. Mm-hmm. He's a top tier guy, right? That they have at receiver. That's a position where you got Anthony coming back. You've got a number of guys who you picked up the previous year. You've got your Pettaways, your Kierneys, you've got a room that is loaded with raw talent. Except maybe at the slot spot. If you have a chance to go get an elite guy, you get him. Otherwise, man, you probably stick with what you have or change the road that you're taking.
Mm. All right. Well, for right now, we'll say it's a loss, but how much of a loss, time will tell. Still a long way to go. Till December, and he may not even be a December signee, so it's a long way to go to really figure out what's going to happen. So that being said, we got another special guest on here, the second half of the Barry and Mac show. Got Damian Mackey in here. What's up, man? How you doing?
Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. Hey, we've been going strong, but I said if you came on here, we are going to circle back to that topic.
Let's do
So
it.
I guess the topic obviously was Jaren Kanak. I think where we left off was the fact that hey, we think that the kid is a phenomenal athlete. We think that Cincinnati, if I could talk for you, Barry, we think that the Cincinnati game was his best game. He made some plays that popped off the screen to you. As far as this past season is concerned, we think it's just a mental block right now. It's a lot of the mental things. I think Barry, at least on my part, Barry said that, hey, it's the technical things. He's got to be better technically to really make an impact this season. Obviously, Kip is in front of him. We know Stutzman, and that's untouchable. We think Kobe McKenzie is basically the true understudy for that position going into this season. But Kanak seems to be the one that he's the wild card for everybody because we feel like we know what's coming with Lewis Carter and Omi Asigo, but Kanak. So the floor is yours. Go ahead because Barry said you had some things to say.
Yeah.
Y'all put me on the spot right out the gate. Sheesh. Well, listen, I'll say this from the perspective of looking at the game as an intelligent ball player. In 2024, you can't just play on grit and speed and right, like that's some old, yeoman claimantship type mentality. Kanak got some things to be worried about, right? From a physical standpoint, you said it. He's a great athlete, but football requires you to be a great athlete and a great football player. And the film just doesn't bear out him being I would say an A plus or even a plus football player. Examples. As a linebacker, your responsibility is obviously to get to the spot, but it's to beat the offensive player to the spot, to the shoulder, right? To the gap, right? Wrong shoulder plays to spill it the other way, right? If you got to buzz the flats, you gotta get to that upfield shoulder so the running back can't run away from you. If you're carrying a seam route, you got to get to that inside shoulder so you can get your head around and try to catch that ball, or at least be a blocking mechanism in between the ball and the quarterback throwing the ball. Those are all things he does very slow. So although he can run a fast 40, although if he's running away, if he's on the backside of a play and he has the opportunity to flow, hell on wheels. If he has the ability to blitz, a B gap, hell on wheels. If he's inside out on somebody pre-snap, hell on wheels. But when he has to think, he's the slowest linebacker on the team. And it's not close. When he's got to read over and beyond just a play side uncovered guard, he struggles, and you can see him thinking. And so, not to beat the kid up, because I think he has the opportunity to do some good things. The beauty is this is the time, and here's the deal: this is his last shot. You said it. Lewis Carter and Sammy O and McKenzie and those pups coming in this year, they don't have to wait. Brent has refilled the cupboard. The cupboard is not bare like it was his redshirt puppy year, where he was going to get thrown into the fire because we had David Yu, who was a glorified DN playing linebacker. We had White, which I don't want to say anything a lot of negative things about White, but he's a guy that had to move to Cheetah. That just tells you how light the cupboard was. They have depth. Yeah. And Kip is a football player. By the way, Kip's a 4-4 guy.
Yeah.
Kip's a 4-4 guy. So Kanak's a 4-3, 4-4 guy. Kip is also a 4-4 guy. He's got the body. He's got the length. He's now putting on weight. I think he's 214. And then you got the puppies. Lewis Carter's in another league. Sammy O is in another league. They are just a different caliber of player. So Kanak, for me, he's polarizing.
Well, oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say Kanak has the ability to potentially start. If the light bulb goes off, because he's got 2 years of game film, right? Theoretically, he should be able to watch himself and say, ooh, that was slow. Ooh, I was thinking foot and cement, right? Deer in the headlights. He should see the film. He's got 2 years worth. He should catch that in this spring, clean that up, and he can.
Well, hey, look. So, and this was something I was going to point out to you. So I made this point to Barry as well. My uncle here, he made this point a while ago. He said, "Hey, it's all on BV because Kanak, his first year, Kanak should have been playing. Kanak should have got reps, right? You had Sooners Cowboy earlier in the chat. He said, "Hey, Lewis Carter, Sammy O, they should have been playing as well." But if we're just talking about Kanak for this purpose right now, that was my uncle's biggest problem with the whole situation is that, look, as much as I want to sit here and down the kid, I can't because I'm saying, hey, look, BV, this is a bad decision. You got to play this kid because this kid is part of your future. So why not? And then another point that he made that I thought was really good was the fact that he said, hey, look, where Kanak is right now is perfect for the Grinch system. It's not good for this BV system. He said, just letting him be an athlete, speed D, all the rest of that stuff, perfect. Right now, no. He said, but that falls on BV for not playing the kid and giving him those reps in that 22 season.
So here's what I'll say to that. BV came into a scenario where he was under the impression he had talent. And he did have talent in some positions. Backer was not one of them. Yeah. What Grinch was not good at was identifying talent, and even worse at was identifying football players. Mm-hmm. And then you bring in a guy like BV who is literally like a professor at backer. Like his level of expectation is like perfection. He wants you to aspire for perfection. Yeah. So you bring in Kanak, he's your kid, right? Obviously committed to Clemson and then came over from Kansas, the state of Kansas when Brent comes in. The kid is raw as a filet mignon at Safeway. You know what I mean? Like the kid is raw to the bone. He couldn't have. Hey, he was raw, man. What was he had never played backer before. You know what I'm saying? So that's as raw can ever be. He wanted to play him. I have buddies who are on the coaching staff who were like, they were this high on Kanak, the highest out of all they were higher on Kanak than Stutz. Yeah. But the kid wasn't prepared to play. So, I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020. I agree that I wish he had more reps just the same way. I wish Lewis Carter and those guys had more reps this last season so that they'd be more apt to play in the SEC. But here's the other part about the game today. You got NIL. You've got these guys who have the transfer portal. Guess what players got to do more so now than ever is be prepared to play. You know what I mean? Because the game changes so fast. Kanak either has to put up or he's going to sit on the bench and be a special teams ace. And I guarantee you this, Brent's not going to play him for the sake of, some kind of good old boy, favoritism because he can't afford to lose. Brent's going to play the kids that's going to line up on Saturdays and blast the B gap, carry the seam, buzz the flats, and do all of that quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Let me ask you this right here. What the hell do we have to do? What the hell does the linebacker core as a whole have to do to really help that cover three? Because when I watch the games back, and trust me, I always give a shout out to Mr. McIntosh. I watch all the highlights. I scoured YouTube trying to look for film. I'm like, man, I got to get me an all 22 plug. But I digress. Here's the thing. When you watch the film and you watch some of those plays, you're sitting there. I brought up the Arizona game earlier. That game pisses me off. I brought up the Iowa State game from 2022 when you're talking about Stutzman getting beat on little skinny posts. You're getting beat on crossing routes, drags, whatever route they were trying to run, they were running it right there behind him and just waiting for him to move out the way. You go to the Florida State game and you're like, what are you doing? And you can see it. You can see the players. Kip Lewis, for example, we talked about the Macmillan and Fafita link up. They got him on one, and he hit his helmet, and he was sitting there saying, damn, all I had to do was just take 2 steps this way instead of coming forward. That's a pick every time. And that's the thing that kind of it pisses you off because every defensive call that BV calls, a lot of people, that they're so caught up on the aggressiveness. He's putting players in position to to get interceptions, to get hands on the ball. The whole bend don't break and all the rest of the stuff. I understand it from a broad perspective, but if you look at what he's doing, what his defense, he's putting you in position to go get the ball, but you have to be able to make the right decision. And so our linebacker core, I'm just like, why can't we run this cover 3? You know, you're sitting here reading the tea leaves and stuff from camp, from the spring camp, and you're like, oh man, it's gonna be awesome. You got PJ on this side, you got R. Mason Thomas, you got Trace Ford, you got all these guys on this side, you got Nigel Smith and all that. You got Ethan Downs possibly moving inside on those third downs. Well, hell, it don't matter because it's the corners or the secondary that I'm worried about. It's the linebacker. That
You know what's crazy though?
It's always getting torn up.
Want me to give you something to make you feel a little better?
Yeah.
Let me give you a little Kool-Aid, some crimson colored glasses. So if you look at our defense, we talk about the inaugural Bob Stoops 99 season, middle of the pack. 2000 season, we win the Natty, but the offense really carried the first half of the season. The second half of the season, defense carried without question, right? You got T. Marshall, you got Rocky Kalmich, Roy Lee, those guys. Go watch that 2001 film. Go watch that 2001 defense. And you got guys that have been in this. So, and again, this kind of alludes to the Kanak dilemma, but also it speaks to everybody in the room. And you saw it with Stutz. This is their third full season in the system. And BV is the kind of coach who's going to spoon feed you. He's going to throw everything at you, and then he's going to see what you can consume, and then he's going to spoon feed what you do well. So it's a limited package that he expands upon. The 3 years in, Kanak's 3 years in, Stunts is 3 years in, Kip is 3 years in, Samuel's 2 years in, Lewis Carter's 2 years in, McKenzie's 2 years in. So I expect, and I think BV expects, and I would even echo that by saying the players expect that this season they will know what to do it, how to do it, and do it fast. And I think as fans, as analysts, as alumni, we should expect that. So all of your expectations, like Barry will tell you, we watch. I know exactly the plays you're talking about because it drove me crazy. And you can go back and listen to the pod, and I'm going, like I'm pissed off, right? Carry that, turn your head around. But BV expects them to have seen enough film on that to do their freaking job, and I think that bears out. Go watch Clemson. Go watch his third, fourth, and fifth season as a defensive coordinator at Clemson. Guess what? Those guys got it. You know why? He runs a complex system. Yeah. Grinch's system is see ball, chase ball, be physical. That's Grinch's system. Yeah. BV system is if they're in double wing, got to do this. If they motion, we switch to that. We go from cloud to sky. We go from man to off. My one issue with our defense is we have too good of players to not play more man, press, and beat the mediocre teams with talent. When I played, that was the most difficult. Nebraska played you man press the entire game. K-State played you man press the entire game. Florida State played us man press the entire game. And what it does is it neutralizes the 4'6", 5'10" receiver. It neutralizes the big, strong, fast receiver, but he can't get off the line of scrimmage, right? It messes up timing. I want to see our defense do that. I know we did a ton of that, but here was the difference. We have Mike. And so Mike Stoops was a man-free guy. BV was his own blitz guy. So it'll be interesting to see how that chemistry plays out this year. But I promise you this, the backers won't be an issue this season. I firmly believe that. Yeah.
I don't think that your front seven will be an issue this year. I think that your front I think that you got I think the SEC is in for a rude awakening. All they say is like I've told Barry, I've told everybody, look, where I presently stand today, at least 10 wins. At least 10 wins. And I think it's very doable. I think the thing is, like I've told people early on, I told my Texas guys, I told my Bama guys, I told all my people that I do pods with. This is one of those seasons where, yes, we have a gauntlet. There's a gauntlet of games. We just got to see how it plays out. But the most important thing for OU this year, just take it 3 games at a time. It's a 3-game season. All the way through. Basically, you got to take it 3 games at a time. You know that you got South Carolina, Ole Miss, and then I think Mizzou after that, if I'm not mistaken. Or, for example, you got early on, you got Tennessee. You got the ultimate trap game this year with Auburn. Then you play Texas. So it's no longer, hey, we're playing Iowa State, who's trying to figure things out with a freshman quarterback. Then we're going to Texas. Then we're coming back and we're playing K-State or Kansas or somebody like that, you know. where you're like, hey, I can sleepwalk the first week, can't sleepwalk the second week. Third week, I can kind of, I'm just gonna go through the motions and do what I do and beat UCF, but it's not like that, So I'm just
What's funny? Can I say something real quick? You named. Let me tell you the irony. You said K-State, Iowa State, and then you said one other name. You said K-State. Oh, in Kansas,
Yeah.
we've lost to all 3 teams in the last 3 years.
I get it. I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. But I'm just saying, historically, if I'm talking historically. But no, I mean, this year, I just defensively, you return your guys. You got Stutzman, you got Bowman back. I think Bowen is going to have I think
he's the best. He's the best safety we have.
Yeah.
Bowman is the most experienced. Bowen is the best player we have.
He's the best one. Yeah. And I think corner is going to be solid again. I think that you are going to see flashes from the interior and the edges this year as well. So I'm excited for that. I think it really just boils down to, can Jackson Arnold in spurts? Can he be? I don't want him to be. What is Georgia's quarterback? What is his name? It's skipping my mind right now.
You talking about
the national championship year?
No. This past
last year. Oh.
And I know a lot of what I'm talking about. I know a lot of people are, some people
Beck.
Carson
Beck. Carson Beck.
I need Jackson to be Jackson. I need him to go out there and be that star and really take over. But he's not going to have to do a lot either. I think it just really boils down to, hey, can we not be so bipolar in that running back room? Can we just figure it out from the get-go? But I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's just defensively, man, you're just sitting there looking at that linebacker core. And I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I definitely don't think that you're going to have it's outside of Stutzman. I don't think that other linebacker position is going to be established until we probably get to the Tennessee game. Am I right by saying that? Simply because I think it's going to be an open competition, summer, fall, and then all the way until we get to Tennessee, just to be quite frank with you.
I'm going to be honest with you. Watch this. Barry, who do I think is going to win that spot?
I got some thoughts, but it's going to be Kip. It's
going to be Kip. Guys, listen. Kip's the best. Kip's the best football player in that room. He's light in the ass, and he was young. By the way, he's a better football player than Danny Stutzman. He's a better football player than Stutz. So if Kip is mentally prepared, I think he earned his way last season because he outplayed McKenzie and Kanak much of the season and still split pretty evenly reps because of seniority and trust, right? Kanak had earned trust in the offseason and this and that, and being kind of like the understudy to Stutz, he earned his way. So merit-based, I think Kip's right there. We got to stay healthy. And I think Lewis Carter is gonna give Kanak. Lewis Carter's a 4-4 guy. Lewis Carter's the strongest linebacker by a mile.
Yeah.
275 11 times?
Yeah.
275? So with a cheetah body?
Yeah.
With a cheetah body?
And the fact, if he can stay healthy, because this is something that we were robbed of last year. I mean, we were robbed of it. Was that package that you heard those what I call those Tweety birds talk about of having Harrington out there at cheetah. You got Bowman at safety. Then you push McCullough inside at linebacker with Stutzman. We were robbed of that package last year. It's like the football guys just said, nah, it's too good to be true. Y'all ain't getting none of that. We were robbed of that. And so, I mean, that makes it hard for you to get on the field as well.
Yeah.
Especially in those situations, if everything is clicking and you can get to that, because it's not just having a Nigel Smith and PJ on the edges. Then you got Dejon Terry, or what they're saying now, Ethan Downs, or whatever the case may be, moving to the interior where you could do that. Yeah, that's great and all. But the fact of the matter is if you're coming out there you're telling me you got Bowen at safety, Harrington at cheetah, and you got obviously corners. I believe in Woody. I'm a firm believer in Woody.
He'll be
And
solid.
Gentry is healthy. Yeah, I mean, the Son McCullough. I'm just saying like everybody hell, but Stutzman, you got all these guys out there. I'm expecting a turnover. That's just me. I'm expecting us to get a sack or a turnover because I just feel like, hey, there's no way. There's no way you're beating us on a third down package like that because it's too much speed, too much talent, and there's a variety of length out there. And it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll say this, and DMAC kind of if Kip is over 220, it's there's nobody, and even then, we talked about this, and maybe you could speak on this again, DMAC. If even for a guy as physical and as strong and as athletic as Kanak is, Kip did a better job taking on the guards and getting where he needed to be on the plays, even as a significantly smaller frame with longer. Kanak's got more of that stocky arm build. He just looks like a powerhouse in terms of his body, and Kanak's this long, sort of athletic, raw-looking linebacker type. And in the BYU game specifically, where they wanted to be able to pound you with the rock, man, Kip got in there and made the plays that Kanak was not making, and allowing other players to make plays in that same scheme. To me, and we touched on this earlier, if he can make the jump on the pass defense side and understand those nuances that Danny picked up on this past year, being able to read play, read personnel, know formations, understand where you're at on the field and situational football. Talk a little bit about that, DMAC, just real quick, in terms of assessing the play, understanding situations, and then maybe why Danny did make that jump.
Yep. First things first, we're gonna talk about Kip and him taking on the guard. We gotta talk about Oklahoma State. They punished his ass. Oklahoma State punished Kip. So anyway, let's leave that there. I love the lad. I think he's gonna kill it. Situational football, right? So what it's gonna boil down to is pre-snap. The game, like 40% of the game happens before the ball is ever snapped. And now we're starting to see more and more and more motion, right? I remember when we had Leach, we used motion in ways most teams didn't. We would motion into a strong formation, an overload formation. We would even out the formation, so on and so forth, and it helped us pre-snap because we could see what the defense was doing. But Stutzman this year got very clear on if he was the hole defender, the flat defender, or the carry defender, or the blitz defender. And it's crazy because it got to the point where, guys, we could see pre-snap, like they only trust Kanak to be the blitz defender. Like he literally was limited in a lot of spaces where if he wasn't blitzing, it's like, oh crap, they're gonna ISO him and they're gonna put pressure on him. Stutz was able to read pre-snap based on repetition, predictability, and down and distance, which is what the linebacker position requires. You are the quarterback of defense. That's what you are. So, and I gotta say, Barry, I'm gonna push back a little bit. There were games where Kip was really the best from the shoulder up out of all the backers. What Danny was really good at was reading run pass and getting to the spot and beating the blocker and being more instinctive. But Kip, I gotta say, guys, Kip did a good job of carrying and getting his head around. Kip would do a good job of buzzing or stick, and then buzz the flat. He has it. He already has that skill. He just needs more reps. He needs to rep the hell out of spring. What Kip needs to do, and I believe this is going to make all the difference in the world. He needs to let everybody else know this is my position in spring and get all the reps with the ones. If Kip does that, where it's not like you're saying an open comp, if it's an open comp, we're going to see a rotation. Kanak's going to get some run. Carter's going to get some run because those guys are good players. If Kip says, this is my position, y'all get the 2 reps, y'all 2s, Kip might surpass Stutz as the alpha dog. And Barry said it, assuming he's 223, 222, 224. They say he's 214 right now. Right, I think that's what I hear coming out. He's 214 pounds, like every day, not just like on weight. Weigh day, you can do things to get your weight up. If he carries 223, backer is going to be a position like you said. We're not going to have to worry about backer. We got depth and we got athleticism, and we got experience. So I expect those guys to dominate. And to the Arnold. I'm gonna push back on that too. I want him to be a mother freaking star. Why can't freshmen be stars? Why not? Why not? He's got the ceiling. Let's go for the ceiling. Let's go for the ceiling. I don't want to put the bumpers on him. Let's go for the ceiling. The kid can spin it. The kid can run with it. He just needs to stay healthy. And I think the other thing that's really important about offense, and this is my bias, I'll admit it. I'll say it if individuals are listening to this. Seth Luttrell is twice the OC of our last OC, and that's no shot at oh boy, and I'm just talking about the playbook, the depth of the playbook, the diversity of the playbook, the different ways we can attack a defense. We're going to see a lot more fluidity and ways to set things up. Not just shot plays, not just trick plays, and then our bread and butter. That was our offense, by the way. We had shot plays, trick plays, and we had bread and butter. There will be plays. It's like a value meal, you know what I'm saying? Give me the fries. Let me get the double burger with cheese, fries, and Coke. No, this is like a white cloth Michelin 2-star, right? Where you're gonna get the butter, the truffle butter. You're gonna get a little bit of garlic on that. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a more nuanced offense. And I look forward to Seth leveraging he worked with Wilson, he worked with Leach, he worked with, he worked with some big time offensive schemes.
Yeah.
And did well. So looking forward to the nuanced depth of the offense. And I'm excited to get down there for spring. I'm gonna go and me and MC, Mark Clayton, we're gonna head down to Norman probably the first week of April and check out practice and give Seth some hell. I'm gonna make fun of him while I'm down there. Say, man, you suck. So looking forward to that.
Nah, look, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. Go home or go big or get lost. Honestly, the when you watch, and I'll say it again for everybody, if you've watched this podcast, I always say, just type in Mason Fine highlights. Just type in North Texas highlights 2019 or whenever Seth Luttrell is there. You'll see everything. You see a lot of similar concepts. You see why it was key to hire him in the first place. You see a lot of concepts that you see with Levy. You see the spacing. You see similar positioning or whatnot. But I cannot wait to watch that sprint. Why am I calling it sprint bluff? That split zone bluff. That is going to be a beautiful play because all I can picture is Jackson Arnold getting the lane with Bauer Sharp, Devon Mitchell, one of those guys, Jake Roberts, basically being that decoy, blocking that at that second level, getting him out there in space and letting him do what he wants to do. It's going to be beautiful. I cannot wait. Cannot wait to see the tight ends be used more in there instead of just being blockers or whatnot, and just really relying on a split zone. And the thing that I would say, the key difference between Levy's offense and Luttrell's offense, in my opinion, especially going back and watching the tape, Levy is kind of a bread and butter. I'm going to allow you to sleep. I'm going to do some things that I've seen. I'm going to exploit you, right? Seth Luttrell is, let's get the ball down the field, dude. Let's go north and south. Let's give our guys chances on the outside. Let's give them chances. I want to give them chances. Take a shot. Not just here and there. Take a shot. But we can work the field if we need to. We have plays to work the field. And it's not too terribly off from what they were trying to do in the run game as well. But I think you're going to see, like I said, it's a north-south. We're going to run between the tackles, but they're going to be ginormous holes. There was a guy the other day who was breaking the offense down. You're just like, damn, okay, I see what he's doing with North Texas. Obviously, Jason Bean was there. Jason Bean was running like crazy all over the place. Running back wise, they were able to get a lot of like big plays. There was a lot of, hey, hit that hole, maybe kind of like a sidestep, boom, gone, right? And you're sitting there thinking, okay, Sawchuk, if Barnes is right mentally, I don't think anything is wrong with him physically. I think it's all mental for Barnes, to be honest with you. But Sawchuk, Barnes, Franklin, possibly. I think, man, we could be really, really, really dangerous offensively in the run game this year. not only running back wise, but just QB run as well. Because when you break down that self control offense, the QB can get loose a lot too if he reads right.
100% agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I agree with all that. I think the thing that Sooner Nation will enjoy this season on offense is when Plan A, right, gets countered, there will be a Plan B. And again, not making fun of Levy's offense. If Plan A works, we're cooking. Or if Plan A forces them to go to a too high, we're cooking. Right? If we get to a too high and we get the matchup with the spread, we got guys spread across the field and we pick the one. Like that's how Anthony was killing before he messed up his knee. We would get them in too high. And obviously now you can run the football, but now we've got those one-on-one matchups and you've got 8 yards in every direction. And it's just me against you. We run the quick slant, the quick hitch, the quick fade. But when teams countered that, it was like, okay, well, it was hitting our head against a brick wall. What we will have is a counter to their counter. And so I look forward to seeing the offense being, again, have more depth. We need to have more depth to the playbook to play chess. Because if we're playing checkers, Chinese checkers, it's cute. That's cool. But when you're playing against some of the better teams and they're going to man lock you and they're going to bring pressure, then we've got to have an actual scheme to get. Because what would happen? Teams lock us up. We just gonna take all slants like every time. Like we're running. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Stoops, just win. Pre-snap, we got all bumps. We expect Stoops to win, or Anthony before he got hurt. Anthony, we expect you to win. Like that was the offense. That doesn't leave a lot to desire for the defense. That's a pretty easy.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's a pretty easy Tuesday, Wednesday practice. Hey man, it's third and medium. If we go all man, they're gonna be running quick slants. If you go back and watch the film, it's a lot.
Oh no, and I agree with you because what I was going to say, just kind of piggyback off of that, is that UCF was kind of the blueprint. I'll say this too. If you listen to this podcast, I always say this: there are certain games out there that you call a blueprint game, whereas this team, let's put it like this right here: Appalachian State did not beat North Carolina, but they showed everybody else how to, right? UCF was that game for us last year. And then Kansas. And the reason why I say that is because it felt like in the latter part of the season, teams started playing off our tendencies more than they did off of any scheme that we were running.
100%.
And especially if you watch the Kansas game, that pick 6 early on, you just like, dude, what are you doing? But it's because they played off of tendency more than they play off anything. You don't have to watch film to see that. You just say, oh, okay. Lining up in the same formation, you ran this play 3 times. He's staring. He's telegraphing it. I have to make this pick. I have to. So I don't know. Yeah.
No, you speaking truth. And by the way, you just opened a sore wound. I forgot. You know what I'm saying? You over here just.
Hey, I'm being honest, man. I'm honest.
I love it.
But hey, look. We've been on here for about an hour and 20. I know you guys are gonna do some more filming and all the rest of that stuff, so I'm gonna let you guys get up out of here. But go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at the podcast, the website, all of that stuff. If you want to drop some news, whatever, drop some bombs, go ahead right now.
Yeah, man, D-Mac, I got us, man, if you don't mind. So the Barry and Mac Show on Twitter at the Barry and Mac SHW. On Instagram, it's at the Barry and Mac Show. Follow me at BWise Fitness, at letter BWISE Fitness. I'm never changing that. I know people have asked me, I'm like, nope, that's the name of the business. It's the name of everything. It's all connected. So it's super easy. It's my name plus fitness. D-Mac is at D_Mac13 on Twitter. I'm doing this, man, because he's an old guy. And then you can find him at Dame That Dude on Instagram. And then I don't know if D-Mac got anything extra he want to talk about, but I mean, go ahead.
It's good to be in the saddle. I appreciate the opportunity to come on this podcast, man. A lot of respect for you, what you do, and the community you've built. I'm a Sooner till I die. I love the Sooners, but people know I'm gonna tell the truth. I told the truth. Listen, there are a couple of times where I was on some of the old message boards. Bob would get the stuff that I would write, and I would come to town, and Bob would be like, D-Mac, come here. We need to talk. And I was like, he was like, Becky, what is this? And I would be like, Coach, am I lying though? And he would, so I know that we are an extension of the program. And I think we just have the expectation to, one, hold Oklahoma to a high standard, two, tell the truth and be as objective as possible, and three, continue to let folk know, like, don't sleep. Oklahoma is not a program of the past, and the SEC. Okay, I might, people might save receipts, but let's keep it real. A&M went to the SEC and almost made it to the conference championship their first year. Mizzou went to the SEC and they made it to the conference championship their first year. Like, the SEC got to prepare for us much more than we got to prepare for them. Bama, Georgia, respect. Bama's got some turnover. We'll see how the new coach does. Georgia, cooking. Everybody else, y'all in a shadow. LSU, if it ain't the fourth year, right? Every 4 years, LSU steps up. Other than that, y'all regular. Y'all middle name is Reginald. Let's keep it real. And everybody else, y'all got to see us, man. We a blue blood. So I don't mind telling the truth. I think our guys can cash those receipts. They better work their asses off. I know Schmitty's back, so I feel confident that they getting that work in the offseason. And BV is a Sooner, the end. So with Coach BV, Coach Schmidt, and that coaching staff in place, that strength staff in place, I feel good about us. Like you said, 10 wins. 10 wins. We got to go figure out a way to get it done. We got to stay healthy. That old line has to gel. But I feel good about our season, and I have zero issues saying it to whoever want to bring it. Let's do it.
Whenever, however y'all want it. And to all the Texas fans that keep commenting on all my videos, talking about get a life, do this, all the rest of this stuff. All I got to say is just look, horns down. I don't give a damn. It's my show. It's my channel. It is what it is.
Salute, baby. Salute.
So with that being said, all right.